Hey there, this is Jamie again. This is going to be the last video, hopefully, that deals with these pesky comfort and style variables. We need to do a couple of things. What we're trying to do, our overarching goal, is to get an average style and comfort rating for each model of shoe. So that the Bondi 7 will have a variable that says average style and a variable that says average comfort. So we've got two things we've got to do first. Well, one thing, and then we can calculate that. The first thing we need to do is consolidate these comfort variables because we've got comfort and more comfort. We also have style and more style. What we need really is a comfort variable, right, where all the comfort ratings are listed, and we need a style variable containing all the style variables. I'm going to zoom in a little bit because this is going to involve a couple of long commands. And what we're going to do is an if command inside another if command. It's called a nested if command. And some of the language that we're going to use are, the first one is the opening, and well, I guess that's less than followed directly by greater than sign. It like makes a little diamond. It's right above the comma and the period. And that basically means either is not, or it can also mean is not equal to, or does not equal, right? So if you see this, and I'll enter it again, shift less than, shift greater than. That means that we're saying that a logical argument has two things that are not. So we're going to actually say if this is not blank, we want to return the value that's in that cell. So we need to know then how to say what is something that is blank. And to identify a blank variable, to say either I'd like to know if this is blank, or I'd like to say leave the cell blank, the command for blank is an open and closed quotation mark, right? It's quotation marks with nothing inside. That means blank. That actually makes a lot of sense. Quotations back to back. All right. So what how we're gonna set this comfort value up is we're gonna rely on the fact that the way the data came structured is that each row, which represents one review given for a specific type of shoe, each of these has only one for comfort, style, more comfort, or more style. So we're not going to have, for a given review, both a comfort and a more comfort rating, right? Only one of these four has a value for each row that we're working on. So here's how we're going to structure it. We're going to start with an if command. So an if command performs a logical test. So our logical test is going to be, is that one blank? We're actually going to say, is it not blank? So if K2 is not blank, I'd like the value of K2 to go in that cell. Why? Because I want the comfort rating. And if that particular observation has a value for comfort, I'd like to put it in column O. But if it doesn't, meaning if it is blank, I want it to do another logical test. I want it to go and jump over here and test the more comfort and see if it's blank. So if M2 is not blank, I want to return the value that's M2. So basically, if what's in column K is not blank, give us the value. But if it is blank, check M. If M's blank, I want it to return a blank value. If they're both blank, column O should be blank. But if either one of them has a value in it, I want the value from that cell in my comfort rating. I'll hit enter. Oops, I need to close the parentheses twice to close both if commands. And that one is blank, not blank by accident, right? I'm just going to drag down to the Bondi cells, right? This one has a formula in it. Although it looks blank, it's just blank because it's returning a blank value because these two are both blank. But if I scroll down into that fifth row where more comfort had a value, I get a value for comfort, and here that value carries over. So in all columns, or I'm sorry, in all rows that have a value for either comfort or more comfort, it gets translated to our capital comfort row. Let's do the same thing for style. If this value, L2, is not blank, put the value of L2 in that cell. However, if it is blank, we're going to jump over and do an if command on more style. If that one's not blank, then put the value of N2 in that cell. However, if they're both blank, we want column P to remain blank. So this time, because there's a value in column N for more style, when I hit enter, after closing both parentheses, I'm expecting to see a 4. It doesn't like something I did. Let's try it. If L2 is not blank, return the value of L2. However, if it is blank, I want to jump over to N2 to see if it's not blank, value of true, value of false. To me, that looks good, but it doesn't like it. So we're going to try again. If L2 is not blank, I wonder if you guys could see what my issue was. Four. Okay, it worked that time. I'll drag that down. Sometimes it's hard to see the mistake you make in a cell, and even then when I evaluated it with my eyes, I couldn't tell what I did wrong, so I did it over and it worked. That sometimes is the first rule of troubleshooting, is just try again. Now I've got all the styles, so first more styles translated, and then regular style translated. All right, so that consolidates all the values for comfort and style into 2 columns. They're actually formulas, not numbers. Oops, sorry, you can see that. And we need them to be numbers. And so we're going to use that copy, paste values, paste special, and then select the values again. So comfort and style, right-click copy. Comfort and style, right-click, paste special. And then we'll paste only the values. That'll remove the formulas from the cells. Now I'm going to center these for my symbolic act of being done. And I'll check each of the values and see they're numbers now rather than formulas, which means that we can delete comfort, style, more comfort, and more style. And we are getting so much closer. The last thing we need to do is average the comfort and the style for each model. Average comfort, average style, and we want to tell Excel to look at the models and return the average comfort for all values with the same model. So that's an average if command. Average if. So it wants 3 inputs. It wants the range that I'm going to use to evaluate, the criteria that I'm going to use to evaluate the range, and then the cells that we're going to get the average from. So since we want the average by model, our range is going to be our model. And I'm going to want to put an absolute reference on all those models. And then I want it to evaluate all the models and give me the average if the model number matches the model number for the row that I'm in. And since I'm saying the row that I'm in, that means that as I change rows, I want it to change rows. So I don't use an absolute reference there. And then the average range says, well, what variable do you want to average? And I want to average comfort. And I'm going to use an absolute reference there. I'm going to close my parentheses, but before I hit enter, I'm going to double check that my range column, the models, has an absolute reference, and that my comfort, my average value, what's in the K column, also has an absolute reference. And since I see that it does, I'm going to hit enter, and my average comfort is 4.5. And I'll eyeball here just to make sure. I totally made another mistake. See how this one's empty? We're just going to copy this and paste it here. Y. Average C. 2. We're going to do it again. Okay, I'm going to check that. I'm just going to focus still on that Bondi 7. And I'm going to highlight all the rows that have the Bondi 7 in them, and I'm going to make sure that the average comfort is the same for all of those. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing for style. Equals average if, so my range is my model number with an absolute reference on all those values. My criteria is the model number. And then my average range is everything in style, absolute reference on those, close parentheses, hit enter, 4. So the average style across the Bondi 7 is a 4.5 for comfort and a 4 for style. The Cloud 5 has matching values, 4.81 for comfort and a 4.8 for style. I'm going to scroll down and check a couple others. The New Balance Made in the USA 990 V5 is a 3.8 for comfort, a 3.6 for style. And why am I doing this? Because I want to make sure it makes sense. I'm also checking to see if the average values change when the model number changes, or when the model name changes, and it does. All right, I'm going to format these as numbers with 2 decimal places, and I'm going to center them. And then last but not least, I'm going to use copy and paste special to get the formulas out of these cells and replace them with numbers. Now I've got no formulas in those cells, and I can get rid of comfort and style. Whew, this is starting to look like a really useful data set. Okay, I'm going to sign off for now, and we're going to come back and deal with all of the duplicates, and then we are going to evaluate this and make sure that it all makes sense. All right, talk to you soon.